What's good, YouTube? It's the Anime Demon, and I'm finally back with another video. I know I haven't made one in a while, but I decided I'm going to try and get right back into it. I've been busy with work and things of that nature, switching. It's a lot of change going around in my life right now, but I decided to come back and do some reviews. So the first review I'm going to be doing again is Black Clover. Now, if you've been watching some of my other videos, you've seen I was doing Black Clover chapter reviews and all that, and I've been caught up. But I recently decided to read through Black Clover all the way up to the, Elf Invasion arc. And then once Black Clover's next arc is done, I'll add on to that what I think of that specific arc, the Spade arc. But for right now, I'm just doing from the beginning up to the Elf Invasion arc. So about 23 volumes and like 120, 130 chapters-ish. So from the top, Black Clover, the start of it. So first off, I'm just going to go off and say this immediately. Black Clover is not a Naruto ripoff. I repeat, Black Clover is not a Naruto ripoff. There are some things that Black Clover does take from Naruto, but it is not a Naruto ripoff. In fact, just from my own experience, when I originally watched Black Clover, I thought it was closer to Fairy Tail than Naruto, right? And reading through it, I can see some of the more Naruto things, but I still think Black Clover is a little bit closer to Fairy Tail than Naruto. But with that out of the way, the four basic, I'm just going to do it like this. Story, this is what I'm going to rate it on. Story, art, characters, world building, power system, and overall enjoyment of the series. So, for story, Black Clover, the story, it's pretty good. So, not a lot of people realize this, but if you really think about it, that whole Elf Invasion arc has been, excuse me, Jesus. The whole Elf Invasion arc, it's been in the works or foreshadowed since the very beginning of the story, starting off with that first little mission Noelle, Asta, and Magna go on, right? Where they have to go I think Magna was supposed to just take them into town, I forget exactly. But they run up on the town, or they were going to catch some cats for that village leader, right? And they run into the town, and it's being attacked by some mages because they're looking for that magic stone, the one that the one that Yuno wears on his necklace, right? And those magic stones, those mages were looking for them, and that those magic stones eventually reincarnated the elves, right? So I think from that perspective, foreshadowing in the storyline is magnificent. Now, the themes of the story, they're not too complex, per se, but I would say that because the themes of the story are so, easy to identify, right, it makes it for a better read, and it's easier to read for the casual viewer. You get to understand it more. I don't think that having a complex storyline is bad at all, but I think that anybody should be able to just easily identify what the theme of the story is. And then storyline, I'm still on the storyline part. I think it's just a good story. It's funny, and everything meshes well together. Nothing doesn't make sense. Now, one thing I've heard complaints about are that while they're in one arc, nothing else is happening. But the stuff is happening behind the scenes, and they talked about it. It's just they're focused on this right now, but it's still talked about, right? And within the story, I think the fights are magnificent. The teamwork fights, I love that about Black Clover, and I think it does that better than just about any other shonen series. Team battles, my favorite being Asta. Well, it's just Black Bulls versus Veto in the underground sea. I don't know what they call it, the sea castle, underground sea castle, whatever. I think, but it was mostly Asta, Vanessa, and Finral that really. That was the real team battle part of it, but I think that is one of the best fights in terms of teamwork you have in anime, period. Now, that being said, that kind of wraps up my story portion. I'm not going too in-depth on the story. I'm not trying to spoil anything. I'm just giving you what I think of what the story has to offer. So next, artwork. Now, if you've only watched the anime of Black Clover, you probably think that the artwork is mid because the animation is mid. But the artwork in the manga is absolutely fantastic, right? Fantastic, solid 8.5 out of 10, if not higher, right? I just think a lot of the anime-only watchers, they see some of the bad animation that Black Clover had in the beginning, and they drop it and they just stop watching and say it's bad or mid because of the animation. Which, to me, animation isn't everything, but I understand that it has to be to a certain standard for you to continue. But if you read the manga, I promise you no one will drop it at all. It's absolutely fantastic, especially on some of the devils and elves. And some of the like covers, just the manga volume covers are just beautiful. Now next, I'm going into the characters. So Asta. So I just want to point out that in shonen, you're going to have a couple basic main character types, right? You're going to have the character that has all the development and he's working towards a better to be a better character himself, right? Then you're going to have the main character where he doesn't really develop, but every character around him develops because of him, right? And then you're going to have the character that he's not developing, but the entire world develops around him. And I think for right now, where Black Clover's at, I think that Asta fits into the second tier, where he's not really going to develop as much as a character himself, but every character around him is going to develop because of him, right? So for that being said, I'm not really going to talk about Asta in this category. Mostly just Yami. Well, not mostly just Yami, but Yami, Noelle, Finral, Vanessa. Not really much Charmy. I'm sorry, I love Charmy, but nah. Luck, Gauche. I'm just naming off characters at this point. Mimosa. Yuno. So, I guess you won't really see the development of Yuno too much. They do show a little backstory of when Asta helped him when that thief stole his magic stone necklace, and that's where the development started. But you don't really see it much, but I give him that because it happened, right? All of these characters develop around, well, I wouldn't say Yami really develops either. He's just a badass, so he's just one of my favorite characters, so he's just there. I think Charlotte is a fantastic character. Nero, well, I guess, okay, I said I'm only doing Alpha Evasion, so scratch Nero. But I think every one of those characters is fantastic, especially when you look at it from the perspective of them developing around Asta. If you look at it like that, it just puts him in a different tier of main character. And I think they have some of the best female characters in shonen, period. Vanessa, I love Vanessa too. They're all good characters, right? Some of the best female characters in shonen, period. Some of the best just side characters in shonen, period. And some of the most badass, like the Wizard King, Julius, Yami. I think Lit. I don't know how to say his name. The elf leader. I think he's a badass character, right? So with that being said, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Characters in Black Clover, I think I'm gonna have to give it a 9 at least, right? Now, world building. So, I think sometimes I take for granted world building, right? So I usually think that if you have a basic kingdom setup like Black Clover is, I won't give that too good of a rating. Something like My Hero, which is literally just Tokyo Ghoul 2, like literally just Tokyo, that's gonna get a 1 for me. I'm sorry, because you're not building a world, right? But then you have things like One Piece. Shoot, what are other world building? I don't know. Well, just off the top of my head, One Piece, right? Things like that. So then, but then when you really deep dive into the world building, I think the types of creatures in the world also count as world building. All the different types of power in the world counts as world building. Not necessarily power system, but power in general, right? Like, say, for instance, like light magic, time magic, the dark magic. Lich uses sword magic, the copy magic, just all the different types of magic. So I think that also factors into world building as well. And then just the world setup, man. So with that being said, you have elves, you have devils, and there's a whole underworld that they're working in the Spade arc right now. Like, it's fantastic. Over just from a creatures, I guess, perspective, like the different types of life forms in there. From that perspective, I think that's fantastic, right? The overall world, just the kingdom setup is fine, but then you also have dungeons in Black Clover. So Black Clover combines two different world type systems. Because if you really look at it, and something like Magi, Isn't Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Solo Leveling, those all are basically dungeon-based anime. And then you have something like Black Clover, which puts like the basic kingdom setup. Something like, I guess I'd compare it to Naruto in this sense. So Naruto, you have the leaf, the sand, all those villages. Black Clover's is kind of like that too, just the Spade, Diamond, Clover Kingdom, right? Heart Kingdom. You have those kingdoms. It's basically the same basic type of setup, but then they also added dungeons. So I'll give it another point for that. And then, like I said, just the powers in there is just all the different types of magic power that they allow mages to have, I think is fantastic overall. And then lastly, I'm going to go over the power system a little bit. So once every child in Black Clover turns 15, they get a Grimoire, right? And a Grimoire is basically how you gain magic spells. And the only way to really gain more spells is to go through experience where you need to have resolve, develop your character. So that's why some people say Noelle is a good character because she abuses the power system, right? But I don't think that's fair to say because she has to be in the position to develop, to have her magic spells unlock. So I think this is a solid, really solid power system. I would put it above things like Chakra, Hockey. I really love the Bleach power system, but I think Black Clover's is also above that. But it would also be in a few, maybe a tier or two below things like Nen and Trion or Triggers from World Trigger. I would put those in a different tier above Black Clover, but Black Clover's is still above average. And I'm gonna give the power system an 8. Now, enjoyment. I can see why if you're watching the anime, which even though the anime is really well paced, actually, in reality, I can see why some wouldn't really want to watch it in the beginning, because Asta's yelling too much and this, that, and the third. The animation's not too great. But if you're reading the manga, it's fantastic. And even me, when I first watched Black Clover, I didn't notice all the yelling. I didn't notice the bad animation until I seen it pointed out on Twitter and things of that nature. So I really think you can enjoy it, even if you're watching the anime. Because I did. I watched 129 episodes straight in, I want to say, like, shoot, maybe 4 or 5 days, right? And I enjoyed it to the max I can enjoy it. I really like Black Clover. And in terms of new gen, I have it tied for first with Jujutsu Kaisen, with Chainsaw Man, and with Hell's Paradise, Jigo Kuroku, right? So that's my overall Black Clover review and my thoughts on it after reading up into the Elf Invasion arc. And while I'm here, I might as well say I really think the Elf Invasion arc is a top tier new gen shonen arc, period. But my overall for the Black Clover, I 8.5. I love Black Clover. Black Clover is an 8.5 series. Easily. And honestly, that's all I have for you guys today. I just wanted to start my comeback and start off with something that I do really like. And Black Clover is something that I do really like. If you have any questions, comment below. If you want to support the channel, like, comment, subscribe. Do anything you can. Or not. If you don't, then you don't have to. But I would appreciate it if you do. And with that being said, it's the Anime Demon, and I'm out. Peace.